And Humza Yousaf being elected as the leader of the SNP is great news for the future of the union, but perhaps not for women's rights. Throughout the election campaign, Yousaf was the only candidate who supported scheming Sturgeon's sick gender reform bill, which allows people to legally apply for a new gender after just 3 months. Look.
If we cave in, if we roll over to a Westminster power grab, they will come after legislation after legislation after legislation. They're already threatening to do it, time and time and time again.
Meanwhile, the war on women's rights activists hit the headlines again over the weekend with attacks on Kelly J. Keane, including a soup being thrown over her before she was forced out of New Zealand. One of Humza's most loyal henchmen, former SNP councillor Austin Sheridan, took great delight in this, tweeting, "Seems you can't have a nice wee bit of tomato soup without transphobes getting all worked up about it." But Scotland's most famous woman, J.K. Rowling, hit back, writing, "We've all met progressive men who think male violence against women they don't agree with is a right old laugh. What's new is seeing them be this open about it. Maybe Humza will let you write his gags if you manage to get him elected, Austin Sheridan." So, with the election result now confirmed, I want to know, is Yousaf's victory bad news for women's rights? Email me, dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me @gbnews. I'll poll shortly. But to debate this now, I'm joined by the man at the centre of the storm, the SNP's Austin Sheridan, alongside the political editor at the Scottish Daily Mail, Michael Blackley, and the free speech advocate, Lisa Keogh. So, Austin Sheridan, what do you have to say to J.K. Rowling, who says that you are laughing, just openly laughing, at a women's rights campaigner being attacked?
First of all, congratulations to Humza Yousaf on winning the SNP leadership. What a great victory for progressive politics in Scotland. J.K. Rowling put out a tweet. She misrepresented what I was saying. I was saying that it's ridiculous that people can't seem to post pictures of their tea or their dinner, etc. on Twitter without transphobes with this peculiar obsession with tomato-based products. What she then went on to do is she then posted a picture of Posey Parker with a hand around her neck, and it turns out that was actually her security guard, and what was being held to her neck was a phone. So she purposely tried to mislead people. Then when people were calling her out on Twitter,
well, no, but you're laughing about her having tomato soup poured over her head at the very least.
No, absolutely not. I don't condone violence against anyone, regardless of the situation. Okay. I believe that the rule of law should always be upheld, and people should be punished accordingly.
Lisa Keogh, you've been very passionate about these sorts of views. Do you feel nervous about having Yousaf continuing Sturgeon's policies on the gender extremism?
100%. I think Yousaf, sorry, not useless. I think Yousaf being in charge of Scotland is a nightmare. He's obviously he doesn't like women. It's very obvious to see. He wants men to be able to say he's women. He's a dangerous man. And like Kate Forbes said, he's kind of failed at everything he's done.
Michael Blackley, political editor at the Scottish Daily Mail, can you talk to me about the politics of this? Because even if it's what he ideologically believes, isn't this just insane for Yousaf to continue with the gender recognition reform bill and this big fight with Westminster, given it finished Sturgeon off?
Yes, I mean, I think it was pretty interesting that on his first day, just as the result of this is confirmed, he was asked, I asked him about whether he intended to challenge the UK government's use of a Section 35 order to block the gender reform bill, and he confirmed that that was his first principle, that's his starting point, that he intends to do that. Now, this is an issue that has been hugely divisive in the SNP, and there's been people within the SNP that have told me they just hope that whoever wins just lets this issue die because it's doing damage to the party, and they were just desperate that the next First Minister doesn't go ahead with this. Although in the recent weeks, Nicola Sturgeon has refused to say that she will definitely challenge this in the courts because there's a lot of danger in actually doing that. So in saying that he will go ahead with this, Humza Yousaf is actually instantly being even more adamant of pressing ahead with this legislation than
Exactly.
Nicola Sturgeon was.
More provocative, ignoring the people of Scotland. What a weird thing to do on your first day in office. Austin Sheridan, can you just tell me why you love Yousaf so much? Because as far as I can tell, he's an incompetent politician. He failed as the Justice Minister. He failed as the Transport Minister. He failed as the Health Minister. He doesn't seem particularly smart. He's a walking, talking PR disaster. What is it about Yousaf that you think will make him a good leader of Scotland?
Humza Yousaf is the only candidate that is progressive in his thinking, how he wants to move Scotland forward economically and the kind of policies he wants to implement.
It's just because he's woke, that's it.
And he's the only candidate committed to equality. I should correct something you were saying earlier on in the show, Dan. In the Scottish Parliament, there are 3 stages in legislation. Humza Yousaf voted for same-sex marriage in the first stage in the Scottish Parliament, and Humza Yousaf voted for the gender recognition reform. Humza Yousaf wants to challenge that legislation, not just because of the subject of the legislation, it is the principle. The principal fact being that Scotland's national parliament passed legislation in a devolved area, and now Westminster are attempting to block the legislation that was voted for, by the way, by every single political party in Scotland. It was
But Lisa Keogh,
every party that voted for that legislation.
But Lisa Keogh, OK, I just want to let Lisa Keogh respond, because Lisa, the people of Scotland don't support this legislation, though.
No, we absolutely don't. It's a very dangerous legislation. And I actually, for one, as an independence voter, I actually, for one, condone the Westminster getting involved. We need somebody to protect us. We actually need somebody to save us from SNP.
I just don't think that's credible coming from somebody who says to support independence. Surely, you should be standing up for Scotland's right to choose. There was a very lengthy debate in Scotland's Parliament, lasted over 6 years, and Scotland's national representatives voted through that legislation. Also, this thing about gender recognition reform being unpopular. I mean, the latest opinion polls are showing the only political party in Scotland that was officially opposed to gender recognition reform are losing seats, and that pro-GRA parties are picking up seats. So it's certainly not a vote loser. That seems to be an argument that's a red herring. That doesn't actually translate when it comes to showing projected support for political parties. But of course, the ballot box is the only time that really matters. And I'm very confident that the SNP will have a good show next year in the Westminster election.
Keep dreaming. If I had to vote between Scotland being independent or women and children being safe, women and children being safe wins every time.
Yeah, indeed. Michael Blackley, final word to you.
Well, I think what you've heard today is 2 people that are relatively supportive of the idea of independence in the SNP, but you've seen just how divisive this single issue is. So it's going to be a real test of Humza Yousaf's leadership, because we saw in the result today that the SNP is highly divided. It was an extremely narrow victory for Humza Yousaf. This is one of the issues that's dominated throughout the campaign. And I think when you have a divided party fighting over an issue like this, he has a real challenge on his hands to keep that party together, never mind to start attempting to win any votes from new voters.
OK, fascinating debate. Thank you so much for having it. That's the political editor at the Scottish Daily Mail, Michael Blackley. Before that, the SNP's Austin Sheridan and the free speech advocate Lisa Keogh. So who do you agree with? After he pledged to fight for Nicola Sturgeon's gender recognition reform bill, is Humza Yousaf's SNP leadership win bad for women's rights? Sean on Twitter says, of course, unless Yousaf is like his predecessor, Scheming Sturgeon, who completely ignored women's rights and endangered the younger generation's future. Julia says he's a total disaster, he won't last. Forbes should definitely have won. And from Susie, he's bad for everything in Scotland. And your verdict is now in. 94% of you agree that Yousaf is bad for women's rights. Just 6% of you say he is not.